All right, this is my teacher toolkit, and my focus is on deeper learning technology. So based on the Horizon report, one of the main things that's really important for us to focus on as teachers is increasing our students' collaboration, having them be able to connect their existing knowledge with new knowledge and kind of experience the world in different ways, and then also make them active learners. So it's really, really important to engage your students in learning. You're not just lecturing at them. They're kind of interacting with things constantly, so that keeps them engaged, and it's shown that engagement increases learning retention. So some of the tools that I gathered are some tools that I've used in my classroom. So peer grade is one of the tools I use to have my students provide feedback for each other. It's a pretty cool technology because students can actually upload their documents. So whatever that is, I teach architecture, so my students upload their floor plans, and they're very technical and there's a lot to look for. So they usually miss some things. So they all upload their own document. I have a set rubric on there, and then it randomly and anonymously gives them someone else's floor plan to then go through that rubric and give that student feedback. So they can answer questions, they can write out comments, and they give feedback on those floor plans. And then after that, once they give feedback on someone else's, then they get to see their feedback on theirs, and then kind of see where they went wrong, what changes they need to make. And they can flag anything, so it's always great. You never know what's going to happen along the way, but students can flag if something's inappropriate or things like that. So you have control as a teacher. You also can see kind of what step they're at. Are they, currently giving feedback to someone, or are they looking at their own? What step are they at? And if someone's taking a little too long, you can actually push them into that next step and kind of track where everyone is. So here are some tools. This is an explanation of how to actually use peer grade. So it gives you kind of a quick breakdown, what it looks like, some helpful hints, and kind of how to move students through that process. Another resource I have is just reviews from teachers. So one of the things they recommended is using this grades 6 through 12. So I completely agree with that. I teach high school. This is definitely for an older student so that they can understand and kind of read rubrics and give that feedback that you're asking for. Where a younger student, it might be difficult for them to do that. So this is just pros and cons that some teachers have put in. The next one is called Flipgrid. So this is a great way to bring students just outside of their classroom. So they can interact with students in other classes or in the world through Flipgrid. So they get to create videos, and they could be answering a question or reflecting about something, or maybe even introducing themselves, so using it at the beginning of the year. And you can see over here that they can add cool emojis and kind of have fun with it. But the great tool is after the fact. After the video, students can then post on each other, like things, comment on things, and really start a discussion and kind of dive deeper into that learning on their own. So that's kind of one of the important things with deeper learning, is that they're taking ownership of their learning and they're kind of enhancing it and having these conversations on their own, and they necessarily don't have to be teacher-led, which is great. Over here I have an explanation of how the tool is used. So just a quick YouTube video and how Flipgrid works and how you can create your videos and you can see them all and things like that. This is a great article I found, just how to empower student voice. So that's a big part also of just keeping students engaged. How do we create these digital citizens that we want? And Flipgrid is a great way to do that. It gives students voice. And as you can see, it's one that is can be used for younger children as well. The next one is Poll Everywhere. I use this within my lessons, so to keep presentations active and engaging, and students aren't just sitting there and listening, they're actively engaged throughout my entire presentation. So whether they're logged onto a laptop or they have a mobile device like a tablet or a phone, I incorporate questions and polls into my Google slide presentation, and that keeps them engaged. One of the ones that I absolutely love is just getting a base knowledge. Like what is your existing knowledge on, say, wall construction? So how do we build residential walls, and like what goes into that wall? And I do a word cloud for that. And what I see is like one of the biggest words is wood. Students understand how houses are made out of wood, which is great. I might get some nails, studs, maybe insulation as some words. And that word cloud really helps me then dive into that lesson because I know their existing knowledge, some words they already know, and then I can pull in those words and really kind of tie that existing knowledge back into my lesson. So this is a video on how it's used, and then 7 learning strategies that you can use within Pull Everywhere. The next one is Google Classroom that I use. I really, really like Google Classroom. It allows students to discuss. You can put discussion posts on there and they can kind of communicate that way. But the main way I use Google Classroom is that you can share your Google Docs. So everything I create is on Google Docs, and I actually make a copy for each of my students. So say we're doing an activity, I make a copy, they can automatically start editing it. But what's even better is during group work, when you want students to work together and kind of collaborate together, that they can share those documents with their group. So you give them a copy and then they share it, and then everyone is working on the same document together, which is really great. Once again, video on how it's used and then tips and tricks for you. So here is the actual technology that I'm going to show you a lesson and actually dive a little bit deeper into, which is called ThingLink. ThingLink is a really cool resource to broaden students' horizons. So one of the things for deeper learning is expand their knowledge outside of the classroom. So there's only so much you can see in the classroom. So with ThingLink, you can actually have students explore spaces outside of the classroom. So maybe they take an experience to Rome and you talk about Rome or something, and do like a history lesson. So the way that I've used it in the architecture world is we actually have a new edition going up, and I had our project manager take pictures of the building and show the different stages of it and teach my students some terminology about that building going up. So what is a column? What is a girder? What is a beam? What are those steel decks? So kind of thinking about the structure. So the way to do this, ThingLink, you can use normal, just standard images, or you can use 360 images. So if you buy a 360 camera, you can create a virtual reality experience for your students, which is pretty cool. So through the VR, students get a look around. This is kind of like a fisheye view of it. So imagine you're in VR, and you could put these little tags at different places, and then that tag would give the student more information about what they're looking at. So like here, this is a chandelier, and maybe it'll give you more information or a history lesson about that chandelier. So it's pretty cool. So how do you do it? So essentially you would use ThingLink, you would get registered. My school, we're very fortunate that we have a premium teacher plan, but you can start off with the free version and that would be enough. But then that's something to think about in your school if there's enough teachers using it, getting that teacher premium plan. These are instructions on how to use a 360 camera. So if you want to create your own, you can obviously find images online to use. But if you want to create your own 360 images, you can purchase the camera here. And it's super easy. You download the app, you set up the camera on a tripod, and you literally click of a button and it takes a 360-degree image of everything around it, which is really cool. So some tips and tricks for you is make sure you're out of the camera's way. So maybe go behind a door. It is linked to this app, so you could take a picture from far away and click the capture button so you can get out of the way of the camera. So here's an example of what I did. So if you want to, you can kind of scan this QR code, and it brings you through this activity. In virtual reality, I have my students use VR goggles, but you don't have to. Students can just use a computer. And this is our new edition going up. So this is kind of way back when. And you'll see there's these little arrows that allow you can link pictures together and move through a space. So here, my students would click on this video and watch this video about elevators and how a hydraulic elevator works. So it's kind of expanding their knowledge while they're actually inside and kind of moving around the construction site, which is pretty cool. So along with videos, you can just do still pictures and give them kind of information about that, what they're looking at here, and then again, kind of different images and pictures and different ways to give them knowledge. And then they can continue moving around. And then at the very end, I actually have a link to a Google form, and my students kind of fill that out and tell me what they learned. So it's a quick way for me to also assess if they understood the material, and then from there we can dive deeper into it. And then these are just some additional resources using a phone versus iPad that you can check out, pros and cons to them that I've found while I've used them. These are other examples. One of my coworkers uses it in her classroom to kind of show all the different equipment. This is our print media lab, so there's a lot of different equipment and training, so she used it for that. This is one of our biology teachers. She actually used a still image to kind of explain how the heart works. And those are my resources.